By the time it started, I'd already been on the night shift for 3 months, long enough for the job to stop feeling temporary, long enough for the cameras to become background noise, long enough for me to write the same line in the logbook without thinking. No activity observed. The storage facility was built to be boring. Rows of metal doors, narrow lanes, a small office, and a security booth that smelled faintly of warm plastic and dust. Night, nothing moved. Nothing happened. Nothing needed me. That's why I didn't notice at first that the cameras were changing. It began with camera 6, the corridor near Unit C12. One night I glanced up and realized the angle was slightly off. Not broken, not fuzzy, just crooked, as if someone had nudged it. The next night it was normal again. A week later it was crooked again. Always the same corridor. Always the same slight tilt. Not random, measured, like something seeing how quickly I'd react. I told myself it was the mounting bracket, old equipment. That lie lasted right up until I tried to rewind the footage. The timestamp hit 03:12:08 and then jumped to 3 hours 12 minutes and 14 seconds. Clean skip, 6 seconds missing. I rewound again. Same gap, same exact cut. I stared at it, waiting for the explanation to arrive. Didn't. After that, I started watching the booth feed more than the facility. Camera 9, the one pointed at me. Management called it accountability. I called it proof that boredom eventually wins. I'd watched that feed 1,000 times. My chair, my desk, my posture slowly collapsing as the night dragged on. Normal. Then one night it wasn't. On the screen, my head was angled toward the left monitor. In real life, I was facing forward. I didn't move. Neither did the image. For one long second, the feed held me wrong, like a paused video that refused to admit it was paused. Then the version of me on the monitor turned its head. Slowly, deliberately, until it was looking straight into the camera. Straight at me. The screen me smiled just slightly, like it understood something I didn't. I shoved back from the desk hard enough that the chair squealed. Camera 9 flickered and snapped back to normal. My image matched my body again. Pale, tense, breathing too fast. I sat there for a while, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But it's hard to unsee yourself doing something you didn't do. The next day, I tried to bring it up casually with the day supervisor. "Anyone ever come in at night?" I asked. He looked at me like I'd asked if the units were haunted. "No," he said. "Why?" I almost told him. Instead I said, "Thought I saw something on the feed." He waved it off. "Old system. It's fine." Then, as he walked away, he added without looking back, "If it glitches, don't mess with it." I paused. "What do you mean?" "Just don't," he repeated, like it was a rule he didn't want to explain. A few nights later, the building went quiet in a different way. Not silent, contained. Like the facility was holding its breath. The monitors dimmed slightly, all at once. Every feed still ran, but everything looked darker, like the brightness had been lowered to make shadows more honest. Then I heard static, a dry hiss that didn't come from the radio. I hadn't turned the radio on. It didn't come from the phone. It seemed to come from inside the booth itself. And a voice spoke, low, calm, close. Stay seated. I froze. The facility didn't have an intercom to the booth. There was no reason any voice should be able to reach me like that. My instinct was to stand, to prove I still owned my body. But my hands tightened on the chair arms without permission. The voice returned, almost bored. Don't make it messy. Sounded less like a threat and more like procedure. Camera 6 was crooked again. This time there was something in the slice of corridor it showed. A shadow sliding along the far wall. Slow, smooth, not walking, not stepping. Moving like something passing in front of a light source, except nothing in the corridor moved but the shadow itself. It stopped, waited, then eased closer as if it was approaching the camera. I switched to the nearest angle that should have shown the same corridor. Another camera loaded, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't showing the corridor. It was showing my booth, from behind, an angle that didn't exist. On the feed, I sat at the desk, staring at the monitors, and behind me in the corner stood a tall shape, not clear enough to be a person, not blurry enough to be a glitch, just a presence that made the light look wrong around it. I spun in my chair so fast the legs scraped. The corner was empty. I snapped back to the screen. The shape was still there, standing behind me, watching. I looked at the timestamp. Live. I tried my phone. No signal. I lifted the landline receiver. Dead. Not quiet. Dead. Like the wire led nowhere. Static hissed again. Look at camera 6. My throat tightened. I did. The corridor was empty now. The shadow was gone. Relief hit hard, too hard, like my body was begging for an exit. Then something stepped into frame, not fully, just enough to be understood. A silhouette so dark it didn't look like it blocked light. It looked like light refused to enter it. It stood perfectly still. Then it leaned toward the camera, and the perspective felt wrong. Too close, like the camera wasn't in the corridor anymore, like it was inside something smaller, inside my booth. The voice came again, softer now, patient. You've been good. The monitors behind me went black all at once. Not a power cut, a blink. The screens became mirrors reflecting the booth, reflecting me, reflecting the corner behind my shoulder. And in the reflection, standing close enough that it should have been impossible to miss, was the same tall shape. Clear, sharp, real. Because reflections don't need light to show what's already there. My body locked. My lungs refused to fill properly. The voice spoke one final time, almost gentle. This is why we keep the footage. And in the black mirror of the screens, my own reflection opened its mouth to speak. A fraction of a second before I did. In my voice, perfectly calm, it said, "Stay seated."